Hey, everybody, welcome to the 7 Minute Workshop. This is a program where we chat with experts to break down complicated, timely topics that are affecting your business. And we do it in just 7 minutes. That is quicker than it takes to get through a Starbucks drive through on a good day, or at least where I live. I don't know about you. All right, so we're sticking to the theme of accounting this month, and we're back for one last time, at least for now, with our Senior Product Marketing Manager, Scott Beaver. And today we're discussing cost accounting. And we'll explain what it is, why it applies to more than just manufacturing, some of the hurdles in managing it, and why access to the right tools and data are crucial to its success. Okay, before I bring Scott on, a quick reminder. If you have any questions throughout the discussion, you can ask them in the comments, and we'll get to them at the end of the conversation. But don't forget to tell us where you're tuning in from. Drop us a hello, hola, bonjour. I almost mispronounced that for my French friends, or whatever you choose. A marhaba for those of us here in the Middle East. We know you've signed on from all parts of the world, and we'd love to give you a shout out right back. Okay, now please join me in welcoming Scott Beaver. Hey, Scott.
Hi, Fritz. How you doing?
Joining us. I'm doing great.
Good.
I shaved for today.
Looks nice.
Yeah, I didn't know if you knew that I was doing that, but just for today, I'm going to grow it all back. I think from the last few weeks, people know that you're in the state of Georgia. I'm in the Middle East, and we just want to welcome people from around the world. And let's get into it. Cost accounting. What is it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So cost accounting is a subset of the topic we talked about last week, which is managerial accounting. And it really is looking at the cost to produce a product or of a process, and internally what's that structure look like. Traditionally it was a manufacturing activity, but it just really looks at, what are the costs to carry a product? What are the costs for me to produce a product? What are the costs of the different steps in a process?
Got it. So, I'm just trying to make sure, so this is only used in manufacturing, or now it's
no,
used more
yeah.
broadly?
So it sort of was an outgrowth of manufacturing, but it's now used in a lot of industries, and has broad application. For instance, any company that's a product-based company that holds a lot of inventory costing is one specific approach or one type of cost accounting.
Got it. Okay, so what are some of the types of costs that are part of cost accounting?
Yeah, so you're looking at really two different categories. One is you're looking at both the direct costs, so the what is the material that I'm paying for? What are the labor costs? And you're looking at indirect costs, like if I'm leasing a facility. So you're looking at those, but you're also looking at both the fixed costs, those that don't change, and the variable costs as well. So from a production standpoint, variable costs are the amount of materials that I put into, to make the product, for instance. So it's those two different categories: fixed and variable and direct versus indirect. Another variable cost might be energy. The longer I run a manufacturing line, the more energy I'm going to use.
And maybe just a couple of the types of costs that aren't part of cost accounting.
Other costs would be, SG&A costs are not generally included. So sales, marketing, that sort of thing. The things that wouldn't fall in the cost of goods or cost of sales typically.
Got it. Okay. And so, I think we're kind of getting a sense of this, but why is cost accounting important? Or maybe asked differently, how does cost accounting help a business improve?
Yeah, so it's really about making sure I'm using my resources as efficiently as possible and improving my margin on products or services that I offer. So if I can look at where I'm spending money in the various steps of building a product or delivering a service, and I can find ways to reduce some of those costs, it's ultimately going to affect my margin, and all that eventually goes to the bottom line. The great thing about cost accounting is not only am I gathering those costs, when I make a change, I can then look at how did that change affect those costs. So did it drive down did my acquisition costs go down because I worked with procurement, for instance, to get better pricing? So, that's one of the great, it's not just about getting the initial costs, it's monitoring how different changes affect those costs.
So when we think about cost accounting, who is, pardon my pun, accountable for that within the organization?
Yeah, I'll forgive you for that pun, but ultimately it's a finance, it's a finance role. In large organizations, again, especially those that are very product centric, you might have a full-time cost accountant. In most smaller organizations, you have different people. It could be, a real small organization could be the CFO. It might be, in a mid-sized organization, someone who's just got management accounting as their priority and is only going to focus on cost accounting when need be. But it's generally an accounting, but they work very closely with operations because that's what you're really looking at. You're looking at how do we improve the efficiency of operations to reduce overall costs.
Got it. And are there any particular skills or expertise that are necessary for this kind of role?
For a full-time cost accountant, you're going to have obviously an accounting degree, but you're probably going to have an MBA as well. An entry-level accountant or entry-level cost accounting doesn't necessarily have the MBA, but if you want to make a career, you're going to need that. And additionally to being very technically proficient in accounting in general and knowing the various tools and approaches to cost accounting, another very important factor is you've got to be good at communicating because you're trying to sell your ideas internally. And so that analysis skill, isolated from that ability to build relationships, to collaborate, and again, to sell internally, is not, without the latter, having the technical skill doesn't really help you much because you've got to sell those ideas internally and get people to take action based on your recommendations.
Yeah, I guess so many jobs require that, and certainly out of some of the more technical fields, the ability to communicate is so important, but especially with something like this.
That's really true of accounting becoming more and more. It used to be that whole idea of a bean counter, somebody that sat in a room and just looked at numbers, but that's really no longer the case and hasn't been for quite some time. It really is about, how can I work with other people to help them see the value that we're bringing to bear by focusing, in this case, on costs and reducing those costs.
Got it. Okay. Well, just a couple shout outs so far. We have Zafar, who is in Pittsburgh, I think. And then we have Ben from Houston, Texas. Hey, thank you both for shouting out where you're from and your names. Please, everybody, tell us where you're joining in from. Scott, what are some crucial things that you need to do to be successful at cost accounting?
So the first thing you have to do is be able to track those costs. And that's one of the hardest things, is getting that data that tells me for this product that I'm producing, what are the costs going into that product? Again, both the variable and the fixed. It's, it may be easy to know how much the materials I used are, figuring out maybe the hours, but it's some of the other costs, like how do I allocate my energy consumption to that? So that's the first thing, being able to organize that information, being able to apply it appropriately to the cost. Then the next piece of that is, once I have the data, can I identify areas where I think, why are we spending so much here? And then make some recommendations as to how to reduce those. So those are it's being able to organize the data, but then having the analytical skill and the tools to evaluate and look for solutions and do sort of the what if, analysis to determine what should I do to reduce those costs.
And, speaking of data and data analytics, it's obviously a big priority for finance leaders today. I mean, why is that becoming more and more? I mean, I think you touched on it a little bit, but why is that becoming more and more of a skill that finance leaders need, and how does that impact cost accounting?
Yeah, so accounting people in general are really good with numbers. They're not necessarily great with math, but they generally are. So that's important. But organizations are seeing how much value they have locked in data, and they're looking for a way to better take advantage of that. And that's always been a challenge. Again, historically, you've got data in different places. It's not all in one centralized system. Finance has their information, ops has their information, et cetera. So, the recognition that data has a lot of power, and I can use it to drive decisions, that I can use it to find things that maybe I wouldn't have otherwise seen. Because so many companies have done that, it's just become a trend, and people realize now I got to do a better job of taking advantage of all this data that I collect and figuring out a way to use it to make my business more successful.
We're going to open this up to some questions from the audience, and for those tuning in, if you still have questions, keep commenting, keep shouting out, and we'll do our best to say hello and answer as many questions in the remainder of time that we have. The first question, though, while we're waiting for questions to come in, is how does NetSuite help businesses manage cost accounting? Because I get to ask that question, I'm going to make it a selfish NetSuite one.
Yeah, so there are two ways. Number one, it's just that data. In addition to having all your information stored in a centralized location across all departments where it's accessible to those who have the right permissions, we also use a multidimensional concept where you can tag different types of data or create reporting segments for different types of data that allow you to add those operational elements to financials. So I can say this expense, for instance, is related to this product. And so that makes it much easier to generate the kind of reports. On top of that NetSuite has some really powerful analytical tools sort of embedded within the system. Just your core reporting, your ad hoc reporting, and some other sort of advanced business intelligence capabilities that make it much, much easier. So you're not stuck just using Excel and trying to work things out. You've got it embedded within NetSuite.
We have a couple more shout outs here. I'm going to struggle with these names. I think Lupa or Lupa, there's two P's. So I wanted my American sensibilities want to say Lupa from Brazil. Please correct me, Lupa or Lupa, if I'm wrong on that. I'd rather come back and pronounce it correctly. Kayesha from St. Petersburg, Florida. Again, if I've said it wrong, please correct me. And Eka or Acha, just a hello from, I'm not sure where they're from. And we have a question from George. And he asks, are there any recommendations for cost accounting learning, online courses or references or some sort of help you can give, Scott, to somebody who wants to learn more about this?
Yeah, the first place I would go is the Institute of Management Accounting. It's ima.org. They have amazing resources, and many of them are free, but they also have online education that you can sign up for. So that's one place I would go. LinkedIn Learning is another great resource for learning more about lots of topics. So that's a second one, but I would always start with the IMA.
Thank you. Our next question is, as a young business, at what stage, maybe size or revenue or just general sense, do I need to ensure that someone is managing specifically my cost accounting?
So controlling costs is always important, but the point at which you want to make that a focus, number one, it's going to depend on the industry. It's going to depend on your revenue. But when you start getting that sense that I really don't know how much we're spending at each step in delivering a product or providing a service, and I don't know if what we're spending is appropriate, that's when you need to really sit down and analyze those costs and get a sense of, okay, now I know what steps can I take to reduce that. So, it's a lot about at that senior level when you start feeling, I don't know if my costs are in line, then that's the perfect time to look at it and do the best you can at aligning those costs with the product or the service or the inventory or what have you.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. Our next question is, you mentioned this at the top. Last week we talked about management accounting. How does cost accounting tie into, or does it, management accounting?
Yeah, so it is a subset of management accounting with its own rules or its own techniques. Activity-based costing being one of those techniques, lean accounting being one of those techniques. And so there are a variety of costing approaches. but it falls under the broader umbrella of management accounting.
I see. Okay, thank you. And then we had a comment from Thomas. Thank you. Excellent information, organized cost basis data. And a shout out from Sai in India. So thank you guys all for tuning in and for your great questions and comments. But that is all that we have time for. Thank you, Scott, for joining us this month on our accounting series. We've tagged your LinkedIn profile in the description, so if people have more questions for you, they can follow you there. But thank you for helping us all out.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Okay, great. And as always, a big thanks to all of you for tuning in. We'll be kicking off a new month-long theme next week that I know a lot of you have been thinking about, which is managing a hybrid workforce. And we'll be joined by NetSuite experts Hanif Ismail and Mark Holliday on Tuesday, August 10th at 11 a.m. Pacific to dive into our first topic, which is key considerations and returning to the office. Mark your calendars and see you then.